Have you ever walked into a place that looked alive on the outside, but felt empty on the inside? Picture Las Vegas in 2025. The neon still flashes across the desert sky, the slot machines still sing their hypnotic jingles, and the fountains still dance to choreographed music. But when you step inside, the silence hits harder than the lights. Rows of slot machines glow without players. Dealers shuffle cards with no gamblers to receive them. Waitresses wander the aisles, trays balanced but untouched, searching for customers who never arrive. A city of lights, a city of silence. For decades, Las Vegas was the beating heart of American escapism, a glittering oasis in the desert where the ordinary could be transformed into the extraordinary. It was the place where working-class families, honeymooners, and busloads of retirees could afford a taste of extravagance. You didn't need to be wealthy to feel like royalty for a night. The city promised cheap thrills, dazzling entertainment, and the intoxicating idea that with one lucky roll of the dice, nobody could become somebody. Vegas was more than neon lights and casinos. It was a stage where everyone, no matter their background, was invited to play a starring role. But something has shifted beneath the glowing skyline. The dream that once belonged to the many has been quietly taken over by the few. Rising costs, endless hidden fees, and a relentless obsession with luxury have hollowed out the very soul of Las Vegas. The affordable buffets are gone, replaced with overpriced dining. The accessible hotel rooms of the past have transformed into exclusive suites, unaffordable for the middle class who built the city's legacy. What was once an inclusive playground has become a gated paradise where only the privileged can afford admission. And this is not just the story of a city losing its crowds. It's the story of what happens when accessibility, the magic of feeling like you belong, even for one unforgettable night, is stripped away. The casinos still sparkle, the fountains still dance, and the lights still blind. But the energy that made Vegas legendary has dimmed. It now shines brighter than ever, yet somehow feels emptier than ever before. Stay with us as we peel back the curtain and expose the shocking reality of the world's most famous city of sin. This isn't just about Las Vegas. It's about a promise broken, a dream redefined, and a question that haunts not only this city, but countless others. When profit overshadows people, what happens to the soul of a place? Long before the glowing skyline, Las Vegas was just a dusty desert stop. In the early 1900s, it was little more than a railroad town where travelers rested before heading deeper into Nevada. Few imagined this barren stretch of sand would one day become the capital of excess. The turning point came in the 1930s, when gambling was legalized in Nevada. At the same time, the Hoover Dam was under construction, drawing thousands of workers. With them came paychecks, restless energy, and the desire for entertainment. Small gambling halls popped up along Fremont Street, offering liquor, cards, and a chance to strike it rich. These were humble beginnings, far from the billion-dollar towers that dominate today. But the formula was simple and irresistible: risk, reward, and escape. By the mid-20th century, the foundation was set. Vegas did not grow by accident. It grew because it understood something about human nature. People crave hope, even if it comes wrapped in flashing lights and uncertain odds. The early casinos sold not just games, but possibility. That possibility was affordable, accessible, intoxicating. For a long time, anyone could step into Vegas and feel part of something larger than life. The city that would one day be called the entertainment capital of the world was still in its infancy, but its heartbeat had begun. What came next was a transformation no one predicted. By the 1950s, Las Vegas had exploded into a cultural phenomenon. The Strip blazed with neon, and casinos stayed open around the clock. This was the golden age, the time when Vegas became not just a city, but a legend. Visitors flocked from across America, lured by cheap buffets, affordable rooms, and the possibility of hitting the jackpot. The Rat Pack, led by Frank Sinatra, made Vegas their stage. Legendary entertainers like Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. transformed casino lounges into world-class theaters. Ordinary families from California could drive in for a weekend that felt extravagant without draining their wallets. Retirees, honeymooners, and hopeful gamblers filled every seat. Vegas was marketed as a place where anyone could live like royalty, if only for a night. A $5 steak dinner, a $20 hotel room, and a $1 bet at the slot machine gave people the feeling of belonging to a glamorous world. The city was still rough around the edges, but that was part of its charm. Yet beneath the flashing lights, shadows lurked. Organized crime played a central role in funding and managing many of the casinos. The mob skimmed profits, pulled strings, and turned Vegas into their cash machine. But for visitors, this hidden underworld mattered little. The city felt alive, dangerous, and thrilling. This was the Vegas of postcards the Vegas people still dream about. But like all golden eras, it was destined to fade. The story of Vegas cannot be told without the mob. During the 1950s and 60s, organized crime families saw the desert city as fertile ground. They invested in casino construction, laundering money while building empires. Skimming profits directly from the casino floors, the mob grew rich while keeping operations efficient and ruthless. This darker side of Vegas became legendary. Money flowed in rivers, entertainers performed for mob bosses, and politicians turned a blind eye. The connection between glamour and crime gave the city a dangerous allure. Movies later romanticized this era, painting Vegas as both seductive and sinister. But life under mob rule had its limits. Corruption was everywhere, and violence lingered behind the curtains. While tourists were dazzled by neon lights, locals knew the city's foundations were built on shadows. By the late 1970s, change was coming. Federal crackdowns and shifting business models began to loosen the mob's grip. New players were waiting to take control, and their strategy wasn't about skimming profits, it was about scaling profits. The mob years gave Vegas its reputation as a place of risk and indulgence. But the next chapter would replace smoky backrooms with boardrooms, and mob bosses with multinational corporations. What the mob had built through grit and crime, corporations would transform into spectacle and brand power. The city was about to reinvent itself once again, but this reinvention came at a cost no one could see yet: corporate takeover. As the 1980s and 90s dawned, the mob's influence waned and corporate America moved in. Hotel chains, developers, and global investors saw the Strip as an opportunity to turn gambling into big business. Where mob bosses had built casinos for profit and power, corporations built mega resorts designed to dominate the skyline. The Mirage, the Luxor, and Treasure Island redefined Vegas. Casinos became theme parks, complete with roller coasters, fountains, and sprawling pools. Families who once might have hesitated to visit were now targeted as part of the Vegas dream. Marketing promised not just gambling, but experiences, dolphin shows, volcano eruptions, and pirate battles. For a while, the gamble paid off. Tourists arrived in record numbers, and Las Vegas transformed into a global entertainment hub. Corporate branding polished away the rough edges, giving the Strip a new identity as both glamorous and family-friendly. But with corporations came a new philosophy: maximize profit at all costs. Decisions were no longer made in smoky backrooms, but in sterile boardrooms, driven by shareholders. Vegas was becoming slicker, larger, and more expensive. The seed of exclusivity had been planted, even if it wasn't obvious yet. What once felt rebellious and raw was now carefully packaged. Vegas had become a product, one marketed brilliantly, but one that slowly shifted away from the accessibility that had made it so beloved. By the early 2000s, Las Vegas stood taller than ever before. Mega resorts like the Venetian and the Bellagio symbolized a city that had no limits. Towering glass hotels shimmered under the desert sun, and billions poured into new projects. For a time, it seemed as though the Strip's growth would never stop. But beneath the extravagance, cracks were beginning to show. Prices crept upward. Buffets that once cost a few dollars doubled or tripled. Parking, once free, now came with a price tag. Hotels introduced resort fees, hidden charges that blindsided guests. The middle-class tourists who had fueled Vegas for decades began to feel squeezed out. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. The illusion of endless growth shattered overnight. Half-finished resorts sat abandoned and visitor numbers plunged. For ordinary Americans hit hardest by job losses, Vegas was no longer an affordable dream. Casinos, once buzzing with retirees, bachelor parties, and families, suddenly felt emptier. While the wealthy still flocked to luxury suites and high-stakes tables, the lifeblood of the city, the everyday gambler, was disappearing. This was the first real warning. Vegas could not thrive forever if it abandoned the very people who had built its identity. The city recovered in numbers, but its soul was already beginning to fade. If the mob once skimmed money in the shadows, corporations now skimmed it in plain sight. By the 2000s, resort fees had become standard across the Strip. A room advertised at $99 could suddenly cost $150 or more after mandatory charges for amenities. Most guests never used Wi-Fi, gyms, bottled water. Tourists felt cheated, but corporations defended the practice as industry standard. Slowly, Vegas developed a new reputation, not of cheap thrills, but of hidden costs. For many, the excitement of winning a few dollars at the slots couldn't balance the sting of being nickel and dimed at every turn. Casinos also shifted focus. Gambling was no longer their primary revenue source. Michelin star restaurants, luxury boutiques, and exclusive nightclubs became the new cash cows. Global superstars filled arenas, but ticket prices soared out of reach for ordinary visitors. Vegas still dazzled, but it was a dazzle designed for the wealthy. The middle class, the very heart of Vegas for decades, felt increasingly unwelcome. Where once busloads of retirees and families crowded the casinos, now many stayed home, priced out of the experience. Online gambling added another competitor, offering the thrill of the bet without the cost of a trip. The Strip had grown shinier, but also emptier. The transformation was clear. Vegas was no longer everyone's playground. It was becoming a showroom for the few. When the music stopped. In 2020, the unimaginable happened. The pandemic shut down Las Vegas overnight. Casinos went dark, hotels closed their doors, and the neon strip became eerily silent. For a city built on crowds, touch, and excess, it was a nightmare. Dealers, waitresses, performers, and tens of thousands of workers were suddenly unemployed. The city that had branded itself as untouchable was shown just how fragile it really was. For months, the fountains were still, the slot machines lifeless, and the streets deserted. When restrictions were lifted, Vegas tried to roar back to life. The lights blazed brighter, advertisements shouted louder, but the comeback revealed a harsher truth. Visitor numbers were lower, spending was tighter, and the middle-class tourists who once formed the backbone of Vegas had even less disposable income than before. Meanwhile, the digital gambling industry surged. From home, people could bet on sports, play poker, or spin virtual slots with just a few taps. Younger generations saw little reason to spend thousands on a Vegas trip when their phones could deliver the same thrill. The pandemic didn't create Vegas's problems, it magnified them. What had already been a slow hollowing out became impossible to ignore. The Strip still shined, but its core audience had vanished. Walking down the Strip in 2025, it's easy to be fooled. Towering LED screens project dazzling ads for world-class shows, designer stores, and exclusive clubs. On the surface, the city has never looked more alive. But step inside the casinos, and reality strikes. Rows of machines blink and beep, but their chairs sit empty. Blackjack tables stand half full, dealers dealing cards more to themselves than to players. Cocktail servers drift slowly through the aisles, traying light in their hands. This is the paradox of modern Las Vegas, brighter than ever, yet emptier than ever. The ordinary Americans who once defined the city, the families, retirees, bachelor parties, are missing. In their place, the city courts, ultra-wealthy elites, and international high rollers who come briefly, spend extravagantly, then disappear. Even for the rich, the casino floors aren't the main attraction anymore. Private villas, exclusive lounges, and designer shopping take priority. The gamble that defined Vegas for decades has been pushed aside, left as a relic of another age. Locals feel the difference most of all. They remember when the Strip buzzed with laughter, chatter, and the thrill of ordinary people chasing luck. Now it feels staged, like a show with no audience. The lights are on, but the soul is missing. Behind the shimmering lights, workers see the truth every day. Dealers who once handled crowded tables now work half-empty shifts. Taxi drivers and rideshare operators complain that the endless lines of tourists have thinned. Waitresses who relied on steady tips watch their earnings shrink as casino floors grow quieter. For locals, Vegas is not just a tourist attraction, it's a livelihood. The city's transformation into a luxury showcase has left many behind. Longtime workers who once built steady lives serving middle-class tourists now struggle to adapt to a model that favors exclusivity. The loss is not only financial, but cultural. Vegas was once a shared experience, a place where diverse groups from across America mingled in the same neon glow. That sense of community, fleeting but real, has evaporated. In its place is a transactional atmosphere, where every smile is measured in dollars, every gesture weighed against corporate policy. Empty casinos are not just about missing tourists. They represent a collapse of connection, the energy that made Vegas magical. Without people, the neon feels hollow, the shows rehearsed, and the promise of indulgence meaningless. For those who still work the Strip, the change is a daily reminder that the dream of Vegas isn't gone. It's simply been priced out of reach for most. Las Vegas is not just a city. It is a symbol. For decades, it represented the American dream, the idea that anyone from anywhere could step into the glow and feel like a high roller. Its decline as a middle-class playground tells a deeper story about inequality, accessibility, and what happens when profit replaces people. Vegas's emptiness mirrors broader trends. Atlantic City collapsed under the same pressures when corporate greed pushed out loyal visitors. Macau in China now dwarfs Vegas in revenue, but it too caters mainly to elites, not the masses. Even New Orleans, once celebrated for its accessible nightlife, now sees rising costs pushing out longtime patrons. The pattern is clear. When destinations stop being for everyone, they lose their soul. Las Vegas is simply the brightest example. The empty casinos are not just about economics. They are cultural warnings, signs of what happens when accessibility dies. The question is not whether the lights of Vegas will stay on, they will. The question is, who are those lights really for? A bright shell, a hollow heart. Las Vegas still dazzles, the fountains still rise, the lights still blind, and the casinos still open their doors every night. But listen closely, and you'll hear what's missing. The laughter of retirees on bus tours, the chatter of young couples spending their first trip together, the roar of blackjack tables filled to capacity. These sounds have faded into echoes, replaced by silence and empty chairs. Vegas shines brighter than ever, but only for a shrinking few. It has become a showroom of luxury where the middle class, the very heart of its magic, has been locked out. The empty casinos stand as monuments to a larger truth. When profit outweighs people, even the brightest stage can grow dark inside. For decades, Las Vegas thrived because it was accessible. It wasn't just a playground for the rich. It was a promise that anyone could step into the neon dream, place a bet, and for one night, feel like royalty. Today, that dream has been rebranded and resold at a price tag many can no longer afford. The city that once embraced the everyman now courts only high rollers, billionaires, and corporate conventions. The Strip glitters more than ever, but its soul feels quieter, more exclusive, almost cold. And yet, beneath the glamour, Vegas still carries whispers of its past. The old neon signs, the smoky lounges, the forgotten diners tucked beyond the tourist zones remind us of a city that once belonged to everyone. The real question is whether those echoes will fade completely, or if they can spark a revival. Can Las Vegas reinvent itself again, not just for the wealthy elite, but for the families, the workers, the dreamers who gave it life? Or has it crossed a line, transforming forever into a hollow monument to excess? The story of Las Vegas is still being written, and perhaps in that uncertainty lies its greatest gamble yet. Because what happens here doesn't just stay here, it echoes across America and the world. If one of the most iconic cities can lose touch with its people, what does that mean for the future of all our cities, all our dreams? If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden reality of Las Vegas, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. After all, the story of Vegas isn't just about the city, it's about us and the dreams we choose to keep alive.